Hi everyone, this is Ashley Latecki Ellen Boss with Skyhouse Herb School and Apothecary, and today we'll be exploring 3 herbs that are helpful allies for regaining cheerfulness. And in thinking about, the times we're living in, and there's a lot of heaviness, and sometimes it's harder to find cheer, it's harder to find lightness of spirit. And I believe that the plants as photosynthesizers, um, literally turning sunlight into food and into sustenance, that we have a lot to learn from plants. They are light holders, they are light bringers. And while not every plant brings about cheerfulness, we know that there are a lot of plants that do just the opposite. But there are so many wonderful herbal medicines that can restore a sense of right mind back to us and put us back into a state where we are more aware of what is really going on and the level of happiness that we have access to. So let's talk about the word cheer and why did I choose the word cheer? Well, the word cheer comes from the Anglo-French word chere, which means face. And so it was believed that when a person was fair of face, that they had this element of cheer, that they had, you could see their happiness, you could see the glow. And in traditional Chinese medicine, they call it the shen, which is the light of the heart that shines through the eyes. And so when someone is just a cheerful person or in a cheerful place, we can see it. We can see it written all over their face. Now, another definition of the word cheerful, so to be full of cheer, is defined as an elevation of the spirits. And I think that's an important thing to think about too, is when we're cheerful, our spirits have been lifted. And so when we're feeling like there's a lot of, blocking to finding that lightness and that elevation of spirit, we can look to the plants. They can give us so many wonderful teachings and lessons just from how they grow in the environment to their actual medicines that they contain. Also, the word cheer, I was thinking about it in terms of like a cheerleader, someone who's like rooting you on and saying, you've got this, you can do this, keep going. That I think that the plants can also bestow upon us some support and cheer. So, we can actually feel like we have maybe a cheerleader in our corner who's rooting us on. So these 3 herbs are herbs that I think you might find helpful and beneficial for uplifting your spirits and giving you someone who's got your back to help you cheer you on through potentially rough times. So the first plant is mimosa, and this is not the orange drink with champagne that we can drink in the morning, but mimosa, this is referring to the plant Albizia julibressin, and this is traditionally a plant that comes from China and comes from Asia. But it has been brought over to the United States and throughout Europe. And so it actually it's now considered an invasive species unless you're an herbalist. And then you're like, oh yes, more mimosa. And this plant was called, in Chinese medicine, it's called the happiness tree. And it is almost impossible for me to drive by a mimosa tree when it's in bloom and not smile and not feel that big sense of cheerfulness. It has these pink flowers. They're very fuzzy. One of my classmates when I was in herb school said that they look like Fraggle Rock. It's like these like fuzzy heads. And it's got like pink on the tips, and then it gets whiter as it goes closer to the head, and they just sort of wave in the wind. So you probably have seen them driving down the highway if you lived on the East Coast. So it's a very common plant that we see that is now in the United States. And the medicinal part is the bark and the flowers. And Michael Tierra, who's an herbalist from the East-West School of Herbal Medicine, he talks about how the bark is very, very grounding and centering, and that the flowers are really enlightening and uplifting. And so when I make my medicines, I put them both together, and that's also a traditional way of blending these medicines. So I'll harvest the flowers, I'll harvest the bark, and I'll put them together and make a tincture. So you can buy this plant as a pre-made tincture, and it's a really, really nice one. It decreases anxiety, but it's very, very uplifting. And so whenever I'm feeling like I'm in a little bit of a funk, or just sort of things are really tense and I'm not seeing the light in things or the joy in things, I'll just take a squirt of mimosa tincture into my mouth. And so this might be something that you might find helpful. The daily dose is between 3 to 5 milliliters, 2 to 3 times a day. So that's about 2 full droppers full to 3 full droppers. And you can take that in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, especially if you're kind of feeling stuck. But if it's just more as an occasional cheering agent, then you can just take 1 squirt of the tincture as needed. This herb is also an adaptogen, so it helps regulate stress response. And it just has a long history as a mood lifter. So I strongly recommend using this herb if you're having any issues with depression, anxiety, or just generally feeling like you need a little bit of elevation of your spirits. The second herb is lemon balm, and this is Melissa officinalis. This is a member of the mint family. I've talked about this herb before because it's just such an easy one to find, an easy one to grow, and so beneficial. So one of the things that has stuck in my mind whenever I think about lemon balm is a quote that was that appears in a lot of Nicholas Culpepper's work, who is a medical herbalist, or I'm sorry, a medical astrologer who combines herbal medicine and astrology. And he said this herb maketh the spirit merry. And I just feel like that's a bullseye on this plant. It really uplifts the spirits, much like mimosa. But I would see that this one is also, whereas mimosa lifts the spirits and, it kind of like makes you smile. It kind of forces a smile. Lemon balm is more like that contented sort of like you're relaxed and steady in yourself, but your outlook has improved. And so I would use lemon balm. It's a great herb to take as a tea. So you can use fresh or dried herbs. The dried herbs, maybe about 2 teaspoons of dried herbs to maybe a cup and a half of water. Or if you're using fresh herbs, you want to use more. So you could use like 2 tablespoons of your fresh plant to a mug-sized cup of water and let that steep for maybe about 15 minutes. You can also take a tincture of lemon balm. That's another great way to take this plant medicine. And similar to mimosa, you could take 3 to 5 milliliters 2 to 3 times a day, or just take a dropper full as needed. Lemon balm is also really helpful for sleep. So if you find that you get anxious around bedtime, you can also take some of this herb to help you level out that anxiety before you go to bed. Another difference between mimosa and lemon balm, in my experience, is that because mimosa is a little bit more of an adaptogenic herb, it tends to work. It tends to take a little bit longer to work in some cases, but it has a more lasting and a more stabilizing effect on the mood. Whereas lemon balm, you have to take it. It doesn't really build up in the body the same way that mimosa does. So if you're looking for something for really long-term mood management, then mimosa might be a better one. But if you're looking for something where you just need sort of a quick pick-me-up, or help relaxing and finding joy, especially in the evenings around bed, then lemon balm would be a good one. And then the last herb that is a cheerful herb is calendula. And so calendula, the Latin name is Calendula officinalis, and this is an herb in the aster family. And this plant is, it has these like kind of yellow gold daisy looking flowers. And while this is not a traditional mood lifter, the reason why I add it to the list is because it really helps to get rid of stagnation. And so one of the reasons why we might not be able to find our joy is because we're holding on to a lot of old stuff, or maybe there's unresolved issues in our tissues that we need to kind of give a little bit of a nudge to clear out so we can come back to our natural state of joy. So calendula is a lymphatic. It works the lymphatic system, so it's really helpful in detoxification, activating the immune system. I use this herb also when there's been long chronic illness. Maybe you've been sick for a while. If you're recovering from COVID, for example, this might be an herb that you take to just sort of give your system a flush. And by doing that, you'll feel that your mood will start to lift. and you'll start to feel that your energy will begin to rise again. And the bright yellow flower, it's such a beautiful flower, and when you get a really good batch of the dried flowers, it's resinous and sticky in your fingers. And I just find that just seeing this herb infusing in water, or an oil as a body oil, it's so cheerful just to see. So it has that energy to it. Also, Matthew Wood, one of my core teachers, he says that this herb is really good for places where the sun don't shine. So, for rashes and issues in the armpits and the groin, anywhere where the sun isn't shining. It's used in a lot of diaper creams for that reason, and deodorants and things like that. But I think about it more sort of um, on a symbolic level, that, where the sun isn't shining, things can get a little bit heavy. So if we need a little bit more of that sunshine, and, if we're feeling like, hey, the sun's shining everywhere, but not here, then this can be an herb to just sort of help clear the negativity, clear that heaviness, and then restore that inner sunlight. So I hope this is helpful. If you want to take calendula, you can take it as a tea as well. You can use, usually it comes when you buy it, the dried flowers, they come, they're pretty big. So I would say, maybe you can use like 8 to 10 dried flowers in maybe about like 3 cups of hot water, and let that sit for maybe 20 minutes. So you're going to be making, a good amount of this, and then you'll sip it throughout the day. That's the ideal way to use it. But you can also use it as a body oil and make an oil infusion. So you could take maybe more like a cup of dried flowers, and maybe more like 3 to 4 cups of a carrier oil like jojoba or something like this, and then infuse them in there by adding heat. So you can do like a water bath and stick it on your stove and let the warm heat of the water help to warm the oil, which will then draw the compounds out of the flowers into the oil. And then you just strain that out, and then you can use that oil topically on your body. It's really good for cold skin, dry skin. It's really good for eczema, psoriasis, rashes, things like that. But I think also because it's a warm energy mover, it's just a really nice one, even if you don't have any skin issues, to use topically to invigorate the spirits and to invigorate blood flow. So those are our 3 plants for cheerfulness. Let me know if you've used any of these plants, what you found to be helpful with them. If you have any other herbs that you use to restore cheer and lightness, I'd love to hear. So thanks so much for watching. Please leave me a comment or hit the like button if you liked this talk, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Have a good day.